Thanks to Rob for doing that with me. And so now we're going to talk about cerebral sci-fi films.
Yay!
Sci-fi films with a little extra.
Make you think.
Make you think. The best kind of sci-fi.
Yes, for sure.
And I don't know, what do we want to talk about first? Well, I guess we could continue our conversation on Blade Runner. We talked about that last week.
Blade Runner.
So, yeah, what do you think? You talk about Blade Runner a little bit.
Blade Runner does make you think a little bit.
It does a little bit.
You got many layers to it, you know? Who thought that Harrison Ford could make you invoke such emotions?
Yeah.
But, I mean, like we said in last week's episode, it really kind of just plays on, is he real? Is he not? You know, is he human? And if these people aren't human, should it matter that they're being murdered? I mean, it has, like, some pretty heavy themes to it. And, yeah, definitely questions morals.
Yeah, and... yeah, there's the whole idea of what it even means to basically be human.
Exactly.
And because then you have the Sean Young character. I can't remember her actual character's name, and she didn't know she was a replicant, and so she has this real struggle of what that means for her now. Like, her entire existence has been upheaved, and it's kind of heavy. It's a heavy movie, and it was a movie that when it first came out, it didn't do well. Like, critical response was a little, like, uneven.
Yeah.
It wasn't a huge box office success.
What did I just watch?
Yeah. But then it became such a hugely influential film in terms of its art direction and its design. I mean, so many films you watch, even just this last year, Priest was a direct ripoff of The Way.
Yeah, The City and whatnot, yeah.
Right. It was a complete direct lift. And Fifth Element, just like every time I saw the taxi cabs flying around in Blade Runner, I'm like, wow. Fifth Element totally we're just like, stick that in this movie.
Throw Mila Jovovich and Bruce Willis in. They won't notice.
Not that, you know, in Fifth Element, I mean, I guess that's another one that could qualify as a cerebral sci-fi film.
It's a little goofier than your typical cerebral sci-fi, but it's a good
it's
one.
got some thoughts in there, and you have and it is a film that very much is influenced by Blade Runner in terms of its look, but it is about, like a lot of sci-fi films, about saving the world or saving the universe.
It's just existence in general,
right.
You know? Once evil is taken over good, there will be nothing left.
Right. And you do have, you know, this Mila Jovovich is like this ultimate being.
The entity.
The entity, the Fifth Element. And there's that very interesting scene towards the end where she's just going through all of history. And, you know, she starts getting to some of the rough patches.
Yeah, war and
it's just like, why is there, what's the point of existence if there's all this terrible in the world?
Yeah, what's the point of saving a race that just kills and hurts? It's like,
and then she learns that all you need is love. Aww.
Yeah, it's a good one. That's been one of my favorites for a really long time. It's fun.
And then it's kind of spinning off of Blade Runner again. Yeah, because that was a Philip K. Dick, and Philip K. Dick is kind of the master of that kind of sci-fi.
It's weird how so many people, you'll mention his name and they're like, I don't know who that is. And then you can think of, like, off the top of your head of 20 movies everyone's seen that he's done, you know?
You can just be like, oh, you know, Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report, and Total Recall. Scanner Darkly. Total Recall doesn't really qualify, I think. I think they turned it too much into a sci-fi action film. It's still a good film, but I don't think it's really what we're talking about right now.
Feel. He seems to use a lot of elements of, like, fictional drugs mixed with, like, really, like, weird celestial universes, and then just kind of crams them together.
But what kind of is, like, the link between all these Philip K. Dick movies, including Total Recall and Minority Report, is kind of this, the central character is this guy whose world basically gets flipped around and turned upside down, and there's always kind of this paranoia about whatever, about society, and Minority Report is a really great film.
It's a good one. That is.
And that.
I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, but I love that movie. Yeah.
And that one, and the idea is that they have these things precog police officers that use these
weird psychic people
to that see the future, and then they can stop crimes before they even happen. But then somebody manipulates the system to blackmail, to set up Tom Cruise's character, and then he has to go on the run and prove his innocence. And it's a very well done movie. Steven Spielberg, and it's very, very well directed and paced and looks fantastic.
And you start to feel bad for the precogs also.
You do. And
it's like they're people too. Don't let them sit around in a jelly pool their whole lives. That's not fair.
And and you were just talking. Scanner Darkly is a very strange film. It's probably, I mean, I haven't read any Philip K. Dick, but it's, from what I've read, it's probably the closest film representation of his work.
Yeah, and I really liked the approach they took to it with the animation process.
The rotoscoping animation,
Because in the book, it's very shifty, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost how I would have imagined and envisioned it, just kind of hazy and shifty and twitchy and like a drug-induced kind of world, which is obviously the underlying theme of it.
You have the suit that Keanu Reeves' character wears that is constantly shifting. So he looks like a different person. Like, you look at him and you never looks like the same thing.
And he's always different sections of different people. It's not even just one person. Yeah.
And using the animation makes that easier to do.
Yeah.
And it's a very kind of makes you crawl, and because it's a very much about drug abuse and drug addiction. And you have Robert Downey Jr. in there.
Woody Harrelson,
very funny.
Oh, they're great.
And I think it was one of those films that Robert Downey Jr. did after he got out of jail and after he got clean, where I think he kind of was just like, hey guys, I'm gonna do a movie where I'm either a drug addict or an alcoholic, just so you guys know I've worked through it, I've gone past it, because he did a few of those. He did like Scanner Darkly, Zodiac,
and Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, Charlie Bartlett. He kind of just like, hey guys, see, I've worked through it. I'm
comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Winona Ryder's good in it too. Yeah. It's a great film. It's just, and I love how there's also the whole like Big Brother's always watching aspect of it, and the government's trying to take over it, but then like there's a bunch of conspiracy twists in it. It's got a lot going on to it. It takes a couple times to be able to like fully absorb it. I think.
I need to watch it a second time. I've only seen it once, and the final shot of the movie just is like a punch in the stomach.
It's so heartbreaking.
It is.
Yeah, you start feeling the little cartoon Keanu.
Yeah, and going back a little bit to Spielberg, kind of it was his sci-fi double feature. There was Minority Report, but first there was AI.
Yes.
And AI is a really great film if you stop watching before the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, they did kind of ruin the ending, didn't they?
The ending should be just Haley Joel Osment at the bottom of the ocean looking up at the blue fairy. That should be the end of the movie. It would have been tragic and poignant and perfect.
Yeah.
And then they had to tag on the thing with, apparently they're supposed to be even more advanced androids, but that doesn't come across. They kind of just look like aliens.
Aliens coming. You're gonna rescue.
And it's so heavy-handed and so schmaltzy and so, oh man, this is a Spielberg moment.
Yeah.
But this was the kind of posthumous Kubrick-Spielberg collaboration, because originally AI was going to be a Stanley Kubrick film.
Yeah.
And so Spielberg carried on the production, and it very much does kind of feel like Kubrick and Spielberg doing a movie together, because it's very dark in a way that Kubrick films are.
He's a dark orchestrator.
Yeah, but then Spielberg just can't help but get a little schmaltzy.
Of course. He's like, I'm Steven Spielberg, I do what I want.
But it is very good, and it is about this future where there are these very human-like androids, and they don't age because they're robots, and this family takes one in and then gets rid of him because they're going to have their own child, and they don't need him anymore.
He doesn't understand.
And he goes on this pursuit because he read the story of Pinocchio, so he goes on this pursuit to find the blue fairy so he can get his wish to be a real boy, and it's so sad.
It's sad. Haley Joel Osment's just an awesome actor,
Yeah,
too.
he was like kind of like the definitive kid actor.
For like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss him in films. He was awesome.
And you have Jude Law in that movie too, as a gigolo robot.
Yeah.
And he's really great.
He pops up a lot in Cerebral Sci-Fi films,
Yeah.
I've noticed. Like
Which
Gattaca.
goes to Gattaca, exactly. And
My
Gattaca,
eyes are prettier.
Yeah.
good
Gattaca
one.
is a really great film, and it's a movie that not a lot of people saw.
Yeah.
But it's set in this future in which people have been genetically engineered to be perfect, and if you're not one of those genetically perfect people, you're called an invalid.
Yeah, and you can't do anything.
Can't
really
do anything.
Than be
You're
like a
basically
line worker.
Yeah, you basically work, janitorial stuff
Yeah.
and the stuff that we would give to illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
And Ethan Hawke has this dream of being an astronaut,
And
but
he's insanely intelligent, but his birth report says he's,
he's got a weak heart and that he could never be able to do
mentally
space travel.
unstable, and yeah.
Right. And so what he does is he switches identities with Jude Law's character, who is perfect specimen, but he had an accident where he's paralyzed, and so they switch identities, and it becomes this whole mystery because there was a crime and they're trying to pin it on so there's this whole
It's strange.
it's very good.
Yeah.
And Uma Thurman's in it, and it's a very thoughtful film. There's
It's-
not a lot of action in it. It does make you kind of just think.
But it's not dull or dry,
No.
to say the least.
No,
Like,
it's very suspenseful and it's very well done.
Yeah.
And all the things that Ethan Hawke's character has to do to protect his true identity, because anything gives him away. His hair follicles,
Yeah.
his blood, his urine. So
he has to scrub himself constantly. Yeah.
so it's a good one.
Another good one, Moon.
Moon, which we can't talk about.
Can't talk about Moon.
Because we're out of time.
No.
Yeah, there's so many movies we didn't get to talk about.
No.
No. So to see Dark City, that's another good one.
And Moon.
And Moon and tons of other ones. But yeah. So come back next week and get lost in movies again.